The New York courthouse stood like a fortress under a sky heavy with anticipation, but inside the air was electric, crackling with a silence so profound it felt like the world had paused. Then the doors swung open and Sean Carter, Jay-Z, the titan of hip-hop, the architect of empires, stepped into the room, his presence a shockwave that froze every gaze. No press leaks had heralded his arrival, no whispers had softened the blow. It was just him, a man whose every move had been calculated for decades, now walking into a courtroom with a calm that wasn't arrogance but something deeper, something lethal. He wasn't here to perform, to spin a narrative, or to protect his legacy. He was here to confess, and the man he faced, Diddy, seated just feet away, his face a mask of stone, knew it. Their eyes met, not with the warmth of a brotherhood forged in the fires of hip-hop's golden era, but with the cold, unflinching clarity of a truth too long buried. The gallery held its breath as Jay-Z took the stand, swore the oath, and sat, his gaze fixed not on the judge, not on the jury, but on a point beyond them all, as if he were staring into the past itself. The prosecutor, a woman whose voice carried the weight of years chasing justice, wasted no time. "Mr. Carter," she began, "do you recall your first formal business venture with Sean Combs?" Jay-Z nodded, his voice low but steady, slicing through the room like a blade. 1999. It started casual, two young hustlers coming up fast, seeing opportunity in each other, mutual interest, mutual leverage. The prosecutor leaned in, and since then, Jay-Z tilted his head, a flicker of something, regret maybe, crossing his face. Since then, it got complicated. Murmurs rippled through the gallery, but he didn't flinch. "Complicated how?" she pressed. He paused, then delivered a line that landed like a grenade. "Our relationship wasn't built on trust. It was built on usefulness." The room gasped, and in that moment, the myth of their untouchable alliance began to crack. The prosecutor didn't let the silence settle. "Would you say Mr. Combs ever confided in you or involved you in behavior that felt ethically or legally questionable?" Jay-Z's eyes dropped for a fraction of a second, a rare glimpse of the weight he carried. "There were things I heard," he said, his voice measured but heavy. "There were things I saw, and a lot I chose not to see." The gallery leaned forward, hungry for more, but Jay-Z wasn't rushing. He spoke like a man unburdening himself, each word a stone lifted from his chest. "Back then, speaking out was like setting fire to your own name. Silence looked like safety." The prosecutor's eyes narrowed. "Why not speak out?" Jay-Z leaned back, his jaw tightening. "Because I was building my own empire. Because I told myself it wasn't my fight. Because sometimes you convince yourself the shadows you're walking through won't touch you." The courtroom stilled, every breath held as he continued. "But they do. They always do." The prosecutor nodded, letting his words hang in the air before pivoting to a specific moment. "Let's talk about 2010, Mr. Carter. You were present at an event in Miami, now under federal review. Can you tell the court what you witnessed that night?" Jay-Z's expression darkened, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "It was one of Diddy's parties. High profile, exclusive. Phones were taken at the door, like always. He called it a reset, a night to bring people together. But the energy wasn't right. It wasn't celebration. It was surveillance. People watching each other, testing each other." He paused, the memory pulling him back. "Then I heard screaming upstairs. A guy ran out, pale, shaking. Diddy just laughed, said, 'He'll be all right.' I didn't ask what happened. I didn't want to know." Gasps echoed through the room, but Jay-Z's gaze remained steady, haunted but unflinching. "Why are you here now?" the prosecutor asked, her voice softer but piercing. Jay-Z's answer came without hesitation, a vow carved in steel. "Because I'm tired of pretending I didn't know who he really was. Because silence has a way of catching up, and I'm done running." The courtroom was a pressure cooker now, every word stoking the fire. The prosecutor pressed deeper, her questions peeling back layers of a history the world had only glimpsed in tabloids and rumors. "You mentioned choosing silence, Mr. Carter. At what point did that silence begin to feel like complicity?" Jay-Z leaned forward, elbows on the witness stand, his voice raw. 2016. A party in Los Angeles, private, invite only. Diddy called it another industry reset, but it felt like a trap. It started with a prayer circle, performative, hollow. Then it turned into something else. His eyes darkened. "I saw people escorted into rooms they didn't come out of for hours. Heard things I never wanted to hear. But the moment that broke me was seeing a girl, maybe 20, running barefoot across the hall, crying. Security caught her before she got to the elevator. The room froze, a collective inhale sharp enough to cut glass. "What did you do?" the prosecutor asked gently. Jay-Z's voice hardened, self-directed anger seeping through. "I did what I'd always done. I left. Told myself it wasn't my business, that if I stepped in, it would become mine." The gallery stirred, a mix of shock and judgment, but Jay-Z didn't shy away. "That night, I told Beyoncé never to be alone at one of his events again. I stopped sending Rock Nation artists, but I didn't go public. I was still protecting the brand. His, mine, ours. The mention of Beyoncé sent a jolt through the room, her name a reminder of the personal stakes beneath the public drama. The prosecutor's eyes locked on him. Was there ever a moment you confronted Mr. Combs? Jay-Z nodded, his voice tight. Once, in 2018. I asked him what was really going on at those parties. He laughed, said, "Some things ain't for your kind of mind, Hov. Stay focused on your paper." That was it. The courtroom was a statue, every eye glued to the stand, as the prosecutor lowered her voice to a near whisper. "Do you believe your silence enabled harm?" Jay-Z didn't answer at first. Then slowly, he nodded. Yes, it did. The admission hung heavy, a wound laid bare, and the room felt smaller, as if the walls themselves were closing in. The prosecutor wasn't done. She opened a black binder, her movements deliberate, and held up a document for the court. "This contains email exchanges between you and Mr. Combs' assistant from 2012 to 2019, listing you as a guest at screened access events, private gatherings where phones were prohibited. Do you recall these?" Jay-Z nodded, unflinching. Yes, they were controlled, everything recorded, everything watched, not by the guests, by his team. Diddy made sure no footage ever leaked. The room sat on edge, the implications sinking in. "Were these events social or business?" the prosecutor asked. Jay-Z's voice was grim. "They were sold as business, brand building, expansion talks. But by the time you realized what they really were, you were in too deep to walk out without questions." The prosecutor stepped closer. "Did you ever witness anything criminal?" Jay-Z exhaled, the weight of years in his breath. "I saw people paid to shut up. I saw girls escorted out of rooms crying. I saw them leave looking nothing like how they arrived. I never saw violence directly, but I saw fear, and fear's louder than any scream." A juror covered her mouth, another stared blankly, unmoving. "Why didn't you walk away after the first red flag?" the prosecutor pressed. Jay-Z's voice cracked just for a moment. "Because I told myself it was just how the business worked. We call trauma tradition, dress up abuse as exclusivity. You lose your compass, and by the time you notice, you're too far gone." The prosecutor's final question landed softly but cut deep. "When did you start to get it back?" Jay-Z stared down, then looked up, his voice quiet but resolute. "The first time I saw my daughter Google me." The gallery exhaled, a ripple of empathy moving through the room. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The turning point came in 2020, a moment Jay-Z described with a clarity that chilled the room. "I got a file sent anonymously to my legal team. No subject line, just a folder titled, 'The House You Helped Build.' Inside were surveillance photos, screenshots of NDAs, voice memos, and a transcript. A conversation between Diddy and a young artist, someone scared, begging to be let out of something. You hear Diddy say, 'You signed it, you belong to this now.'" The courtroom shifted, the words suffocating, a window into a world of control and coercion. Jay-Z's voice shook but held firm. "I listened to that clip 3 times. By the third, I couldn't pretend anymore, not even to myself." The prosecutor nodded. "What did you do?" Jay-Z leaned back, his hands folded. "I severed everything. No press releases, no public statements. I had my team pull Roc Nation out of every deal with Combs Enterprises. No co-productions, no back-channel deals. I ghosted him." The gallery was silent, absorbing the weight of his decision. "Did he confront you?" the prosecutor asked. Jay-Z nodded. 2 months later, he called me. Said, "You ungrateful after all we built." I told him, "It was built on secrets. I'm done carrying them." The room felt like it was tilting, the myth of their partnership crumbling under the weight of truth. The prosecutor pressed on. "Why not go public then?" Jay-Z sighed, his voice heavy with regret. "Because I knew what it meant. Turning on Diddy meant tearing down a symbol of hip-hop, of black excellence, of wealth. I knew it would shatter dreams people built their lives around. I didn't want to be the one to do that." The prosecutor's voice softened. "But you're here now," Jay-Z nodded, his eyes steady. "Because those dreams weren't mine to protect. They were built on other people's nightmares." The courtroom was a graveyard of illusions now. Every word Jay-Z spoke another shovel of dirt on the legacy he and Diddy had sold to the world. The prosecutor paced slowly, her next question cutting to the core. "In your opinion, miss, why did so many stay silent around Mr. Combs for so long?" Jay-Z didn't hesitate. "Because he made silence profitable. He didn't just offer protection, he offered visibility. Awards, magazine covers, deals. He made people believe they couldn't exist without him." The prosecutor nodded. "And what made you different?" Jay-Z's eyes hardened, his voice razor sharp. "I started to care more about the mirror than the money." He looked out toward the gallery, not at the press, not at Diddy, but at the invisible audience beyond. Artists, fans, the culture watching in real time. "I came here because this ends with truth. If I'm remembered for building anything, let it be a new standard, not another illusion." The room was spellbound, every word a spark threatening to ignite the carefully curated image of hip-hop's elite. The prosecutor paused as if out of respect, then asked one final question. What did you gain by staying close to Mr. Combs for so long? Jay-Z's answer was unflinching. Access, reach, safety. The prosecutor raised an eyebrow. Safety from what? Jay-Z didn't blink. From being the next target. In this industry, when you stand too tall alone, they tear you down. Diddy's name was a shield until it wasn't. The courtroom exhaled, the truth raw and unfiltered, a confession not just of complicity but of survival in a world where power was both weapon and armor. The defense team wasn't ready to let Jay-Z's words stand unchallenged. Diddy's lead attorney, a man with a voice smooth as silk but sharp as steel, stood and buttoned his coat with deliberate calm. Mr. Carter, he began, his tone almost too casual. You're a mogul, a public figure. Your brand is built on control and perception. Isn't it convenient that you're speaking now when the walls are already closing in on Mr. Combs? Jay-Z's gaze was steady, unflinched. It's not convenient, it's shameful. But I'd rather speak too late than never, the lawyer smirked, leaning in. Or perhaps you're saving yourself. Jay-Z's voice was calm but firm. I've already lost deals. I've been threatened. I'm not here to be saved. I'm here because silence became poison and I drank it too long. The lawyer flipped through a file, his movements theatrical. Let's review an email from August 2017. You invited Mr. Combs to a closed-door meeting with 2 up-and-coming female artists at a private estate. Phones were checked at the door. Does that sound familiar? Jay-Z nodded, his voice low. It does, and I regret it. The lawyer tilted his head. What happened that night? Jay-Z leaned forward, his honesty disarming. I left early. I had a flight, but I've since spoken to one of those women. She told me what went on after I left. She asked why I let him bring her there. I had no answer, the lawyer pressed, sensing blood. So you admit your involvement? Jay-Z nodded again. I admit I gave power to someone I didn't hold accountable. That makes me responsible. The courtroom was glued to the exchange. The lawyer's aggression met with Jay-Z's raw accountability, a clash that left no one unscathed. The judge's gavel fell, signaling a brief recess, but the room didn't move. Jay-Z remained seated, his eyes fixed on a distant point, as if replaying every moment he'd just laid bare. When the court reconvened, the prosecution introduced a supplemental witness, a move that sent a ripple of tension through the gallery. Leon Haskins, Diddy's former head of security, stepped forward, a man built like a mountain, his face unreadable but his presence commanding. He took the oath, his deep voice vibrating through the walls. State your name for the record, the bailiff instructed. Leon Haskins, he replied, former head of security for Sean Combs. Gasps broke the silence, the defense attorney leaping to his feet. Objection, Your Honor! This witness wasn't disclosed. The judge raised a hand. He's here now. Let's hear him. Leon sat, his eyes scanning the room but never landing on Diddy. The prosecutor approached, her voice steady. Mr. Haskins, you've watched Mr. Carter's testimony. Can you confirm or deny anything he shared? Leon cleared his throat, his voice low but unshakable. I can confirm most of it. I was there. For the parties, the payouts, the women, the fear. The room tilted forward, a wave about to break. Were you ever asked to remove guests who resisted Mr. Combs' directives? Leon nodded. Plenty of times. The prosecutor's eyes narrowed. Were you involved in cover-ups? Leon's jaw tightened. I was told not to record, not to report. I signed NDAs like everyone else. But I kept records, names, dates, footage. I got tired of watching girls cry in limos. The gallery murmured, the weight of his words sinking in. Why come forward now? The prosecutor asked. Leon glanced down, then looked up, his voice firm. Because I've got daughters. Because the truth don't wait forever. And because Jay-Z did what none of us had the guts to do. Leon's testimony was a hammer, each word shattering another piece of the myth Diddy had built. The prosecutor pressed deeper. Can you tell us about a night when you witnessed behavior that made you fear for someone's safety? Leon nodded, his voice steady but heavy. December 2014, a mansion party in Beverly Hills. Security was tight, media locked out. Diddy told me personally, no phones, no slips, no stories. I knew what that meant. He swallowed, the memory pulling him back. A young woman came out of a private room, stumbling, lipstick smeared, one heel missing.
She whispered to me, please get me out.
I opened the back gate, walked her to an Uber, paid for it myself. I never told Diddy. The room was so quiet, it felt like the air itself had stopped moving. Did you witness what happened to her? The prosecutor asked. Leon shook his head. No, but I saw her before and after, and it didn't take a genius to know something had happened. Something she couldn't fight. The prosecutor's voice sharpened. How many other nights were like that? Leon's eyes darkened. Too many, the gallery gasped. A juror scribbling furiously, another staring blankly, overwhelmed. Did anyone else know? The prosecutor asked. Leon looked toward the back of the room, his voice grim. They all did. Security, assistants, managers, artists. Some looked away, some played dumb. But Diddy ran everything. No one said no to him because saying no meant losing access. and access was everything. The prosecutor nodded. "Do you believe Mr. Carter's testimony was truthful?" Leon's answer was immediate. 100%. The courtroom exhaled, the weight of two men's confessions converging into a truth too heavy to ignore. The prosecutor turned to the judge, her voice steady but reverent. "Your Honor, the prosecution rests." The judge leaned forward, his face somber, choosing his words with care. This court recognizes that what has unfolded here is not merely a legal process, it is a cultural reckoning. We have heard from individuals who sat beside power, dined with it, profited from it, and now hold it accountable. He looked at the jury, the gallery, then back to Leon. "I urge anyone watching, silence is not safety, it is surrender. This courtroom does not serve silence, it serves truth." The gavel fell and the room exhaled, but no one stood. Something unspoken hovered above them all. Jay-Z hadn't just changed the case, he'd changed the silence. Leon's testimony wasn't the end, it was a domino, the first of many truths waiting to fall. As the court adjourned, the gallery remained still, every person grappling with the weight of what they'd witnessed. Jay-Z stepped down from the stand, his movements slow, deliberate, as if every inch carried the burden of a legacy rewritten. He paused once, glancing at Diddy. Not with anger, not with fear, but with mourning. The painful clarity of a man who'd buried a brotherhood built on secrets. Then he walked out, alone. No lawyers, no PR team, just a man who'd finally stopped pretending. The silence didn't last long. Outside, the world was erupting. Social media ablaze, newsrooms scrambling, fans and critics dissecting every word. Jay-Z's testimony wasn't just a courtroom moment. It was a cultural earthquake, shaking the foundations of an industry that had thrived on glamour, loyalty, and lies. Diddy sat motionless as the courtroom emptied, his face unreadable, but the weight of the day was unmistakable. Leon Haskins left the stand, his shoulders squared, a man unburdened but forever changed. The judge's words echoed in the minds of those who remained. This is a cultural reckoning, and it was. Jay-Z hadn't just testified, he'd lit a match, burning down the myths that had propped up Diddy's empire, exposing the shadows beneath the champagne and suits. The culture, hip-hop, black excellence, the dream of making it, wasn't just listening, it was waking up. For every artist who'd stayed silent, every fan who'd idolized the myth, every executive who'd signed an NDA, there was now a question. What did you know? And for Jay-Z, the man who'd built his name on truth only to protect a lie, the answer was clear. He knew too much, for too long, and the only way to reclaim his legacy was to let the truth burn everything down. As the sun sank over New York, one thing was certain. The silence was broken, and whatever came next would be written not in shadows, but in light.